Picture ancient Athens, a cradle of civilization, a city alive with art, commerce, and the first stirrings of democracy, a place where ideas were as valuable as gold. Amid its busy streets filled with philosophers, merchants, and citizens, walked a man who would change Western thought forever: Socrates. He wasn't a king or a general, draped in finery and commanding armies, but a plain stonemason, humble in appearance. Yet he possessed a mind ablaze with a relentless curiosity. Socrates' mission wasn't to conquer lands and amass wealth through military might. His battlefield was the human mind, and his objective to explore its vast and often uncharted territories. His weapon? A question. Simple on the surface, yet persistent, probing, and often irritating, designed to unearth hidden assumptions. He became known as the gadfly of Athens, forever buzzing around, stinging and provoking the city to wake from its comfortable slumber, challenging the status quo. Socrates saw his fellow citizens as noble, possessing great potential, but also complacent, too easily satisfied with conventional wisdom. And he stung them into self-examination, forcing them to question everything they thought they knew. He challenged everyone, politicians, poets, generals, artisans, and slaves, forcing them to confront the shaky ground of their beliefs and the often unexamined foundations of their lives. He didn't offer answers, neatly packaged and easily digestible, but revealed, through relentless questioning, how little people truly knew, exposing the limits of human understanding. The Agora, Athens' bustling marketplace, the heart of the city's social and commercial life, became his arena for these public interrogations, a stage for his philosophical performances. Here he'd turn casual chats, overheard conversations, into deep dives on justice, beauty, and the good life, the very essence of human existence. For Socrates, these weren't abstract puzzles, confined to dusty scrolls and academic debates. They were the keys to living well, to finding meaning and purpose in a complex world. Some were fascinated, drawn to his wisdom and intellectual rigor, like the young Plato, who became his devoted follower, meticulously documenting his teachings for posterity. Others were infuriated, feeling exposed and intellectually inadequate, especially when Socrates exposed their ignorance in public, stripping away their carefully constructed facades. Imagine being a celebrated general, a hero of countless battles, only to realize, thanks to Socrates, that you can't even define courage, the very quality you're supposed to embody. Socrates didn't just challenge ideas, abstract concepts debated in ivory towers. He challenged identities, the very core of who people believed themselves to be, making powerful enemies in the process. He was a disruptive force in a city that prized tradition, order, and the established way of doing things. And yet, his relentless questioning, his unwavering commitment to truth would echo through history, shaping Western thought for millennia to come. Why do we still talk about Socrates, a man who left no writings or monuments? His legacy is the revolution he sparked, turning philosophy inward from the cosmos to the soul. Before him, thinkers pondered what the world was made of. Socrates asked, "Who are we?" His call to know thyself made philosophy practical, a tool for living, not just theorizing. Socrates taught Plato, who taught Aristotle, forming the foundation of Western thought. Their ideas shaped science, politics, and art for centuries. Socrates' true importance lies in his commitment to intellectual honesty. He lived and died for the principle that an unexamined life is not worth living. In a world ruled by power and dogma, he championed reason and self-examination. He showed that wisdom begins with admitting our ignorance. I know that I know nothing. This humility is his greatest lesson. Socrates is the ancestor of every honest question we ask today. Socrates was born around 470 BCE, the son of a stonemason and a midwife. He wasn't an aristocrat, but a craftsman and a soldier, tough, plain, and famously odd-looking. He cared little for wealth or comfort, dedicating his life to philosophy. Unlike the sophists, who taught rhetoric for money, Socrates sought truth for its own sake. The sophists taught how to win arguments. Socrates wanted to discover what was right. His days were spent in Athens' public spaces, questioning everyone from shoemakers to generals. He'd start with simple questions about their craft, then pivot to life's biggest issues. Socrates' only real work was the relentless pursuit of wisdom, one conversation at a time. He was a fixture of Athenian life, always questioning, always challenging. His method was not about victory, but about uncovering truth. He believed knowledge was the key to virtue, not just success. Through dialogue, he helped others give birth to their own ideas. Socrates' greatest tool was the Socratic method, asking questions to reveal the truth. He'd feign ignorance, asking for definitions of concepts like justice or piety. When someone answered, Socrates would probe deeper, exposing contradictions. This process led people to aporia, a state of realizing their own ignorance. For Socrates, this was the true beginning of wisdom. His method wasn't about humiliation, but about clearing away false certainty. He believed everyone had the capacity for truth, buried under unexamined opinions. Socrates' questioning was like intellectual midwifery, helping others give birth to insight. This technique still shapes law, therapy, and science today. Let's see the Socratic method in action. Socrates approaches Laches, a celebrated general, and asks, "What is courage?" Laches replies, "Courage is standing your ground in battle." Socrates challenges this. "What about soldiers who retreat strategically and win? Are they not courageous?" Laches concedes, so Socrates presses, "Is courage just endurance?" But not all endurance is wise. Sometimes it's foolish. Socrates suggests true courage must be wise endurance, not just stubbornness. Laches, confused, admits he can't define courage after all. This moment of confusion, aporia, is where real philosophy begins. Socrates' questioning exposes the limits of our knowledge, and in that space, genuine understanding can grow. Socrates never wrote a word. Everything we know comes from others, especially Plato. This creates the Socratic problem. How much is Socrates, and how much is Plato? Socrates distrusted writing, seeing it as lifeless and unresponsive. A book can't answer questions or adapt to your confusion. True knowledge for Socrates was alive, born in dialogue, not on the page. He believed writing encouraged forgetfulness, not understanding. In Plato's Phaedrus, Socrates tells of the god Theuth, whose invention of writing was seen as a threat to memory. For Socrates, philosophy was a shared journey, not a solitary reading. Only through conversation could minds strive together toward truth. The written word, he felt, was a pale shadow of real learning. In 399 BCE, at the age of 70, a time when most would seek quiet retirement, Socrates, the gadfly of Athens, was put on trial. This was no ordinary legal proceeding. He faced charges of impiety, disrespecting the gods, and corrupting the youth of Athens with his teachings. But what was the real reason behind this prosecution? The truth was, Socrates had spent years embarrassing Athens' powerful and influential citizens, challenging their assumptions, and exposing their ignorance. The city, still battered and bruised by the Peloponnesian War and internal unrest, was in no mood for his persistent provocations and uncomfortable questions. They sought a scapegoat. The trial itself was a spectacle, a grand display of Athenian democracy in action, with an enormous jury comprised of 501 citizens, a truly massive assembly of public opinion. Socrates, facing such overwhelming odds, could have easily begged for mercy, or promised to cease his philosophizing and questioning of everything, a simple concession that would have likely saved his life. But true to his character, he steadfastly refused. Instead of pleading for leniency, he boldly defended his life's mission, claiming with characteristic audacity that he was a gift from the gods sent to awaken Athens from its intellectual slumber. He even recounted the story of the oracle at Delphi's pronouncement, asserting that the oracle had declared that no one was wiser than Socrates himself. Socrates then offered his own interpretation, explaining that he was wise only because he possessed the self-awareness to recognize his own ignorance, unlike those who falsely believed they knew everything. His relentless questioning, he argued with unwavering conviction, was not a crime, but rather a vital service to the city, a necessary process for the pursuit of truth and virtue. But the jury, swayed by years of resentment and political maneuvering, remained unmoved by his defense. They delivered their verdict, guilty as charged, given the customary chance to propose his own punishment. A formality in Athenian law, Socrates, with characteristic irony, suggested that he should be rewarded with free meals for life, an honor typically reserved for Olympic champions. This act of defiance and perceived arrogance ultimately sealed his fate. The jury, further angered by his perceived lack of remorse, sentenced him to death by drinking hemlock. Socrates, facing his mortality, accepted the verdict with remarkable calm and unwavering defiance. He believed it was far better to die upholding his principles than to betray them in exchange for a longer life. His trial and subsequent death became a defining moment in history, forever highlighting both the immense power and the inherent peril of free and unfettered thought. Socrates, the renowned philosopher of ancient Athens, faced a grave sentence. He was condemned to die by drinking hemlock, a potent and deadly poison. Awaiting execution within the confines of his prison cell, his devoted friends and followers desperately pleaded with him to escape and flee into exile, away from Athens and its unjust laws. But with unwavering resolve, he steadfastly refused their entreaties. In Plato's detailed account of these events, Socrates explains, he'd lived by Athens' laws all his life, benefiting from their protection and order. To flee now, in the face of this sentence, would betray his deeply held principles and undermine the very foundations of his moral stance. He believed with all his being that it was far better to suffer injustice passively than to actively commit an injustice oneself. Facing death with remarkable composure, Socrates remained calm and collected, showing no signs of fear or regret. Instead, he focused on urging his friends and disciples to continue their relentless search for truth and wisdom, even in the face of adversity. He argued that a true philosopher, one who has dedicated their life to the pursuit of knowledge and virtue, should welcome death, not fear it, seeing it as either a peaceful, dreamless sleep, a release from the burdens of life, or as a potentially wondrous journey for the soul to another realm. On the somber day of his execution, Socrates accepted the cup of poison and drank it without hesitation or fear, demonstrating his unwavering commitment to his principles. His last words, spoken to his devoted disciple Crito, were, "Crito, we owe a rooster to Asclepius. Please don't forget to pay the debt." Asclepius, as you may know, was the revered god of healing in ancient Greek mythology, and in his final moments, Socrates saw death not as an end, but as a cure, a final healing for the soul, freeing it from the imperfections and limitations of earthly existence. He died as he lived, questioning, always questioning, reasoning with clarity and precision, and imparting wisdom through teaching to the very end. His calm and dignified acceptance of death became a timeless model of philosophical courage and moral integrity. Socrates' death, though tragic, was ultimately not a defeat, but the triumphant final act of his extraordinary lifelong quest for truth, justice, and virtue. His enduring legacy, built on unwavering principles and intellectual rigor, would far outlive the city that unjustly condemned him, continuing to inspire generations of thinkers and seekers of wisdom. Socrates' voice still echoes through history. Every time we question, challenge, or seek truth, his spirit is present. He gave us not answers, but a method, a way to think. His life is a reminder of the power of conscience against conformity. Socrates chose death over betraying his principles, inspiring generations of thinkers and reformers. In a world flooded with information, but starved for wisdom, his method is more vital than ever. The Socratic method teaches us to question, to listen, and to admit what we don't know. His wisdom was not in knowing everything, but in knowing how much he didn't know. Socrates held up a mirror to Athens, and to us. The real question he leaves us: are you living an examined life? Are you brave enough to question everything, even yourself?